Hi, welcome to Karen Poole Art Studio, and I've just put together this short webinar I wanted to go over for some of my students out there who are beginning in watercolor, and also for any of you watercolors who are out there who just want to get a nice overview of some good solid supplies to get you started in watercolor. And I would say that when it comes to art supplies, there's just so many choices out there. And I think the manufacturers have really done a wonderful job with providing so many resources for us as artists. But it can be a little bit overwhelming when you're first getting started. So I've been painting in watercolor for many years, and I've tried just about everything. And so I'm hoping that you can kind of, this will be a helpful thing for you. You can kind of learn from some of my mistakes because I have gleaned out of all of those trials with different materials. I've gleaned out of that just what I think the best package of supplies is to get going. So first of all, you're going to want to have water containers, and I do recommend that you have two. These ones are glass containers. I got them from the dollar store, and I really like them because they're short and they have kind of like a nice wide opening. So that makes it really easy for me with my paintbrush to come in and just apply water. So you can use anything. You don't have to go really fancy with water containers. You can use anything like maybe a mason jar, or even just a plastic yogurt container works fine as well. I also want to show you some little supplies here that I think are really useful. This one here is a plastic spray bottle, and I like to use this for spraying down my palette and cleaning it off. And also it's really great for when I get started in the studio and I'm wanting to go ahead and spray my wells down. What it helps is kind of activate your watercolor. And one great thing that you'll find out about watercolor, if you already don't know, is that you can reuse it over and over again, unlike some of the other media like oil and acrylic. So this is a really useful, simple tool. And I also highly recommend using artist tape. This is a white artist tape, and what I do with this is I will use it to put down my paper on my board, and this gives me a very nice taut surface for working on. So artist tape is a little bit different than masking tape, and the reason is because it tends to be very gentle on the watercolor paper, so I really like that. I want to show you one more, and this is actually a miscellaneous item. You don't need to buy this right away. This is actually called Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White, and I really like this because it's a very thick, opaque white paint. I do not have white paint on my palette, but there are times when sometimes I might want to cover up an area, or maybe just do a little highlight on an eye or something like that. And I just need a nice thick paint to do that. So this works really well. I feel like for me it works a lot better than, say, using gouache or even white paint from the tube. So that's why I recommend that one. You're also going to want to invest in good brushes. There's so many varieties out there. And so I would just recommend that in the beginning you choose 3 sizes. This one here is a small, a medium, and a large. This one here is about a number 2. This one about a number 6, and this one is about a 10. You want to use a nice large one for blocking in areas. You can actually get some nice detail with it on the tip as well. And this one here is just kind of your medium brush, and you can actually work on the tip too and get detail. But I like to use this one usually right at the end if I need to refine some special details. You don't want to do your whole painting in this brush. So, and here's an additional supply, something extra that you may want to invest in down the line. And this is just a really nice flat brush. It's about a 3/4 inch. And I like this for using backgrounds. It's really good for that. And it also has some nice angular strokes and some fine lines that you can actually get with a tip when you wet it. So I also go, for those of you who are taking my class, if you download the materials list, you'll see that I go into details about sizes and also just some recommended manufacturers, so you have something to choose from. And I also want to talk to you about paper. Paper is so important. Now I highly recommend using an artist grade paper. 100% cotton is what you want to look for. Two of the manufacturers that are my favorite are first Arches, and the second one is Fabriano. And for beginners, I would say using 140-pound weight is a lot more economical. You can buy it in really large sheets. So it comes with kind of a deckled edge that looks a little bit like this. I'll show you. Kind of like a ripped edge. This kind of adds to the artistic feeling of the paper. And so what I like to do is buy a full sheet, and then I will just kind of cut it up into maybe 6 or 4 pieces to make smaller paintings. And that's where this little board can come in really handy, because you can use the artist tape, and this way you can just adhere that to the board. And this will help it not buckle and give you a good surface to work on. And more information obviously about that on the list. You're also going to want to buy good paint. There are some great manufacturers out there, and some of them actually have some very competitive prices. Sennelier is a really good brand that I recommend, and there's others. Winsor & Newton, Daniel Smith makes a beautiful range. So I always buy them in tubes that look like this. Okay, so what you want to do is when you first get your brand new palette, you want to take it and you want to squeeze out a very generous glob of paint in here. And you're going to have a really hard time if you put just a tiny bit of paint. And remember, you're not going to waste the paint because you get to use it over and over again. So I fill each of these with that paint. And when you run out, obviously, you can put more in. And this particular palette is one of my favorite portable palettes. It's made of metal. It has nice areas here for the paint. You can actually take out these little wells and actually replace it with other colors, so they're interchangeable. That's a nice feature. And I like the way that the little lid closes on it. It kind of is like this. Very portable and small. This is great if you're a plein air painter, you like to paint outdoors, or maybe you want to go down to your local cafe and paint. This is a great little gadget to have. And it also has this little ring on here so you can hold the palette while you're working. So I really love that, just because mainly of its size, and I feel like it's fairly lightweight. I'm going to go ahead and show you my other palette. This one is also a really great choice. It's very large, and it does come with a nice cover. It has a nice big mixing area in here, nice generous size. And you want to get a palette that has at least 24 wells. You'll see on my materials list that I recommend starting out with a nice range of colors. There's about 14 of just your basic colors that you would use. And as you go along and develop as an artist, you're probably going to want to add some of your own favorites in later. And so I recommend that you do have a palette that has a little bit more space than just 14. And most of the manufacturers do make them in this size. I love the feature on here where you can see you could actually write on the side, label these. I use a Sharpie marker so I can identify my colors. Sometimes with watercolor, when they're in the palette, they can look very similar. And so it's really great to be able to identify them. So that gives you a couple of really good choices for your palette. And when I'm cleaning up, I like to use this little spray bottle here and my paper towels just to clean it out. And once in a while, you'll find that some of your colors might get a little bit of film on them, a little bit of sometimes discoloration. So I will just wet it down and just take a little Q-tip and just kind of clean out the palette once in a while, and also put in some fresh paint. You're also going to want to make sure that you have a roll of paper towels, and any kind of paper towels will do for that. My favorite is Viva paper towels. They're really nice and thick and absorbent, and I use them all the time for painting, and I'm sure you will too. And those are just really great for cleaning up, lifting out, and for a lot of different techniques that we do with watercolor. So I hope that this has been a really useful overview for you. Feel free to go ahead and ask me any questions for those of you that are enrolled in the beginning workshop, and I look forward to meeting you and hearing from you.